Hello everyone and welcome back to Nate the Hoof Guy. Today's video, well, it took over a month in the making. That's because we've got 3 different trims in this, from the very involved first trim all the way to the end, the full recovery and block removal. So buckle up, this is going to be a good one. Now if you're watching this over a meal, I would suggest you don't. Now, as you're looking at this mark in the white line, you're going to think to yourself, it doesn't look like much. And that's exactly what I was thinking when I started working on this. I thought it was going to be a localized area to work on here. But as you're about to see, that is not the case. You can really see here the difference in the hardness of horn between that outside wall horn and that solar horn as I'm trimming. There's much more resistance when I get to that outside wall. The sole, nice, clean, smooth cuts, not a lot of resistance there. That outside wall, that knife catches. It's much harder hoof material than that outside wall, and that's because that's the structural component of the foot. That's really what transfers that weight from that cow to the ground. And that's why we need it to be, or it needs to be, that much harder and much more durable. As I mentioned earlier, I really thought this was going to be localized just to this small area. That's why I'm not really focusing and working much higher up the foot at this point. I'm just trying to work in this area, thin those margins down, because in my mind, I feel like those margins are coming to an end already. In a moment here, I'm going to be able to tell that I've got a lot more to remove, and then we're going to make some adjustments. Here I'm just trying to lift up as I ease that knife through, and this is when I can begin to tell that there's much more than meets the eye here, and that's when I'm going to pull the grinder out, thin this down, and make this a much easier job. Now, one of the questions that I get all the time is if this hoof is sore to walk on, then why can you trim on it, and why is she standing so still here? The reason that is because this hard outer layer that I'm cutting away right now, this hoof material, doesn't have any nerve endings in it whatsoever. It's that underlying corium. That is where those nerve endings are. That's where that sensitivity is. So when she puts pressure on this hard outer layer, it's going to affect the corium underneath, and that's where you're going to see that sensitivity. Here, what I'm doing as I'm trimming, I'm slowly trying to work that loose horn away from that sole, and that way we're not causing any more discomfort than we have to here. I'm trying to just slowly and carefully lift that away. If I touch something that's uncomfortable, she will let me know. She will move that foot. So I'm always working deliberately to make sure that that doesn't happen. Another question I get is, why do I sometimes wear gloves and sometimes not when I'm trimming? And all that has to do with, you'll see me sometimes remove a glove, and that's why I have some better dexterity when I'm trying to remove or hold on to these very thin layers. Typically, I'm always going to want to wear gloves when I'm trimming because obviously these knives are sharp and you want to have some level of protection there. I think it's pretty easy to see now what I meant by this is much more involved when I thought when I started. That small little pinhole, there was actually more separation there than I believed at first. It wasn't really released at the top all the way. I didn't have any signs of a loose heel bulb there, but ultimately we did have to take all of that area away. We're going to clean it now really well with chlorhexidine, make sure we've got all the bacteria and stuff that could be in there away. That's going to allow that corium then to start producing new hoof material right away. There's nothing there to impede that. So a really good thorough cleaning with chlorhexidine, and then of course the salicylic acid wrap. And then we're going to move ahead a couple weeks and really take a look and see how this progressed. No, don't worry. I did not forget that block. That's coming up next. Sometimes if I get a large area of openness, I'll wait and put that block on at the very end. That way I can get that all wrapped up and covered and protected. Now she's done, and as we let her out, you can see she's not terribly sure of this foot yet, but in a couple weeks, when she comes back, she's going to be doing much better. Here we are. 2 weeks later, on my next visit, we brought her back into the chute. You can see what it looks like now. Now, at the end of that first trim, you probably noticed all those little soft areas of hoof horn that I did not remove. You'll see here they've all dried and firmed up now. You may be wondering why I didn't take them away at the time, and you'll notice in this trim, it's much safer to do it now. No need to worry about that corium being exposed there. I can trim away at this very safely, remove these. They don't cause any problem when it comes to healing. You'll be able to see that as we finish this trim up. As I've mentioned in previous videos, there's a couple of things I'm looking for when it comes to rechecks. Number one, any areas of openness, I want to evaluate that, make sure that healing has happened as it's supposed to. If there is areas of openness, I've got to figure out why. Is there more trimming that needs to be done? Do I need to treat it again? And so that's what I'm looking for. I'm also going to be testing for the sole thickness, the firmness of that sole. If it's starting to become firm again and we don't have any areas of openness, then I know within a couple of weeks that sole is going to be probably thick enough to bear weight once again. So that's another thing I'm looking for. I'm also just going to trim up any of these loose edges around to make sure that we don't have any debris or any crevices where things could get packed into. But for the most part, I'm looking for healing of lesion and sole thickness to make sure we've got the proper healing that we're looking for. As we zoom in here, we can see as expected, we've got all of those areas that were original lesion spots. Those have healed over. We've got hoof horn over the top, and this foot is starting to become firm again. That tells me that within a couple of weeks, if we don't have any setbacks, that block's going to be able to come off, and she's going to be good to go. So I'm going to put this foot down, and we're going to do just that. We're going to move ahead 2 weeks and take a look. Hopefully for her, that foot is all healed up, and we can get that block off of there. Here we are, 2 weeks later, 4 weeks from that initial trim, and yes, we've got a nice firm sole, which means that block can come off. Now, if you've been wondering if my block retention has improved with the changes in my prep and adding the little bit of glue to the side of the hoof, indeed it has. You can see this one is holding very firmly. That glue, got a lot of glue that's still, even after 4 weeks now, still really held tight to that sole. That's what we want. That's usually the problem area, is the adhesion from the glue to the hoof because it's got some moisture in it. But as you can see, this one held strong, and actually a lot of my blocks have been holding strong. I've had to remove some that were out 10 weeks that probably, if I had my own wishes, they would have come off on their own, but unfortunately not. This foot is ready to go. She is off. And you'll be able to tell by her reaction at the end here, she is happy about it. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you all on the next one.